When were you interested in becoming a pilot?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It just kind of grew on me. One of the most exciting things I ever saw before I ever even thought about becoming a pilot was when I went to see my brother Joe down in Kingsville. The Navy Blue Angels put on a show down there with their new jets, and it was pretty amazing. And
what year was that?
I don't know. It must have been 48 or 49, something like that. I was probably 17.
18, okay.
17 or 18, something like that. But I found that very exciting, and that looked like something I might like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never had a lot to do with aviation. My dad used to take us out there to the end of the runway at San Antonio Airport. And
is that the same one that's still here?
yeah, we drive out there and park at the end of the runway and watch the airplanes take off and land. And he thought that was pretty exciting, and so did I. So that was kind of my really first time that you didn't see an airplane up close.
Mm-hmm.
And I was probably 10 or 11, something like that. In those days, we did our traveling by train. We didn't fly anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go to visit my grandmother in Fort Worth, and Mother would put me on an overnight train in San Antonio by myself, and then my grandmother would pick me up in Fort Worth the next morning, which is, I found, interesting, a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But back to aviation now. I suppose really the first time that I ever had anything to do with an airplane was when I went to Aviation Cadets in Kinston, North Carolina. And this was in '52.
Mm-hmm.
And we started in February of '52. And we did 6 weeks of what they call pre-flight. It was ground school, basically.
But at that point, you had already decided that you wanted to be a pilot, though, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Well, so what was it? Why did you decide? Something. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Because you hadn't actually flown a plane by that point, had you?
No.
So why did you decide that you wanted to?
I'll take it back. One of the guys that I went to UT with for a short time was a young fellow by the name of Bob Bonner. And his dad owned a dance studio over Belknap and I don't know. I forget exactly where it was. I might be able to drive there, but I couldn't remember the name of the street. So anyway, he had an airplane while we were going to school at UT. And that was now that I think back on it, that was my first flight, was with him to come to San Antonio in his airplane.
From Austin?
From Austin to San Antonio, yeah. Yeah.
That must have been very exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. It was. And so it went all from there, and everything started right there, I guess. I thought, well, this is something I might really like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe skip forward a few steps, but not too far. When I was in San Antonio College, there was a recruiting team came through for the Air Force for aviation cadets. And they were giving their examinations out at St. Mary's University. And written tests and what they call a stadine test, and they give you all these things with levers and sticks and to pretend like they were rudders and so forth. And so I took all these tests, and I did pretty well on them. And that's all the information, along with my application. That's what ended up going to Waco, which eventually ended up on trucks and boxes going down to San Antonio to Randolph Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just in the process of getting set up, so it was kind of a mess. Nobody knew where anything was because nothing was computerized. It was just all these papers were in boxes, and
so they were moving from.
They were moving the whole flying training command from James Connolly Air Force Base in Waco to Randolph.
Mm-hmm.
And Randolph had been considered the West Point of the air for many years. So they decided to bring all the training down here, the headquarters of the training command down here to Randolph. And so to step back a little bit into the story, I was just ready to leave UT, and so when this opportunity came about to take these tests out at St. Mary's, so I did, and I took all these tests, and I waited and waited and waited for I guess close to a year. And the draft board was really out on my tail. They wanted me to get a rifle and go to Korea.
Were they contacting you?
Oh yeah.
So were they saying, look, you need to register?
Yeah, you need to do something pretty soon because we're going to draft you. So I said, okay. So with that good news, I went and joined the Army Reserve, the intelligence group in Austin. So I went to the meetings and all that and this took about a year. And finally, when I was home for Christmas in '51, the draft board was really steaming. I mean, they really wanted me bad. So I called out to Randolph to see if I could get any information about my application. And I got a hold of this great sergeant. And I told him my story, and he said, well, let me see what I can do. So on his own, he went out into the hallways there. I guess it was alphabetized or something, because I don't know how they had ever found anything if it wasn't. So anyway, he found my application, and within a couple of days, he called me back at Mother's house while I was there, like I said, for Christmas, and said, we got you an application, or we got your application, and we got you a class assignment to go to aviation cadet pilot training in Kinston, North Carolina, starting the 29th of February, leap year day, 1952. So I said, hooray.
And was that your boot camp?
Oh, well, it was kind of a boot camp, yeah. It was...
and it was also OCS? Or?
It was... No, it wasn't OCS. It was military training, because, all of us guys, most of us guys had never had any kind of military training at all, unless you happened to be an ROTC in college or even high school. Jefferson had high school ROTC, but I wasn't in it. So anyway, went to Kinston, and it was 6 weeks of very intensive military drill and classwork, procedures and so forth. And then they started on the actual flying part of it. As far as the ground school was concerned, we hadn't touched an airplane yet. We didn't do that for a couple of months. So they were teaching us how to get from point A to point B without getting lost. And navigation and what makes the engines work, and and a lot of things that you need to know. And then later on we started, let's see, 6 months, yeah, about a month later, after we finished that, we'd gone through all this training and everything. Then they started into our actual flying program. And I almost washed out there because nobody ever told me what these rudder things are all about. And the T6 had it had a pretty good sized engine in it for a beginner, and you get the power to it, and the thing would want to go off to the left side of the runway all the time. I couldn't figure out what's going on here. Why is this airplane doing this? And so I had an instructor that I don't know. He wouldn't talk to me about it. He said, "Well, keep the thing on the runway." Well, how are you going to do that? So anyway, I finally got a change of instructors and went to a guy by the name of Wayne Him. And he said, "Well, that's what the rudder's for. You start going off to the left side of the runway and you push on the left rudder, or on the right rudder. And it'll steer you to the right. It'll overcome the torque of the engine." So after that, I never had any trouble at all. None at all.
Did he ever say something like,
You said, "Well,
"Why didn't they tell you that?"
No, he didn't say that. I always wondered why the guy, my first instructor that I had for a couple of weeks, I wonder why he didn't say something about it, but he didn't. Anyway, that's all history, and it all worked out fine. So I went from there to, we were there for 6 months. And then we were transferred from there to Kern Air Force Base, which is up in Sherman, Texas, north of Dallas. And this was phase 2, I guess you might say. And so it was more the same, and we got into some instrument flying training there.
Was everybody from your class in North Carolina, did everybody transfer up there, or
No.
were there some washouts?
That's where a big split came, is because all the people that are going to multi-engine went to Vance Air Force Base in Enid, Oklahoma. And so when we got to Parent, they weren't there. They were in Oklahoma.
So what was yours?
I was in single engine fighter training,
Okay.
and we were taking instrument flying.
And was
training.
that something that you had decided on, or something that you were picked for?
I think I was pretty much big for it. I don't think they ever asked me, "Do you want to go to bombers or fighters?" I don't recall that they ever asked me that. And
Well, wouldn't most people want to be in a fighter plane instead of a bomber?
well, no, surprisingly enough, some people just love the thought of going to bombers.
Huh.
And I don't know, maybe they could see an airline career in the future. Something like that, I don't know. But our class was just about split in half. Maybe a few more fighter pilots than bombers, but just about in half. And so we ended up there at Parent Air Force Base. And that lasted for 3 months. And then we were transferred again to Foster Air Force Base in Victoria, Texas. And that's where we really got into the jets. And I thought after my first flight, or maybe it was even during the first flight, I've been faster on takeoff roll than I was in a dive when I was in the old T6, because it was, you break ground at about 140 or something like that, and 120 knots. And so that was a lot of fun.